Hello and welcome to the first video of the new year. After a little bit of a winter break, I'm now back, and today we are going to take a look at a game against Palino and Pajada from the Transcontinental Ladder, which will be very interesting. But before we are going to take a look at it, I first want to mention a few things, starting with doing two shoutouts, because two other great 3DS players have been uploading some content here on YouTube that you definitely should check out. First of all, there's Ipoki, who is at the moment covering the games from the International Championship, where he's playing in the Grandmaster division for the first time. So if you are interested in seeing some more high-level 3H's gameplay, then definitely check out his channel. And then there's also Danny Boy, a player who also played already in the Grandmaster division of the International Championship, and he uploaded some strategy guide videos where he is talking about how to best grow your civilization, and is also showing that on some examples from different games. So I think those are very interesting videos, and definitely check them out, especially maybe if you are a newer player. That could be very interesting content for you. I will put a link to both of those channels into the description of the video, and yeah, so definitely check them out. Then I also want to give you a short overview on what you can expect next on this channel, because in the last year I basically mostly only covered game from the World Championship, but now this year I only have to start playing the World Championship in Stage 4, and there will be some time until then. And yeah, I thought that maybe I plan on covering the next Intermezzo Championship season, where I, for the first time after 15 seasons, got relegated into the Master Division, and now it will be an interesting challenge to go back to Grandmaster, maybe also playing against some players that I didn't play that often before, and I thought it could be very interesting, and I plan to share this tournament with you. And for the time until then, I thought maybe we can just take a look at a few tournaments that haven't been covered that much on my channel today, starting with the Transcontinental Ladder, then maybe also games from the Royal League, the new big two-player tournament. If there's an interesting game from the International Championship, we can take a look at that one as well. So until the Intermezzo Championship season starts, I just plan to maybe share games from a variety of tournaments. And then there's also another new thing, because I have decided to create a new account on Patreon where you have the chance to support myself. And yeah, if you are interested in that, I appreciate it a lot. And I will also put a link to that new Patreon page in the description of the channel. Also, feel welcome to give me some feedback if you think I can maybe do this a little bit differently. Or if there are some benefits that you think maybe would be more interesting for you. But yeah, it's mostly only to just support the channel and the videos that I'm uploading here. And yeah, so if you are interested in that, I'm very grateful. Alright, and now without further ado, we can finally take a look at this game. And if you don't know the tournament, the Transcontinental Ladder is maybe even the oldest still ongoing tournament. I'm not completely certain how early the International Championship started, but the Transcontinental Ladder is already ongoing for 8 years almost now, starting in 2017. So quite old and tournament with a rich tradition, and it's basically very easily structured. There are 66 players divided into 22 different rungs, and in each round there will be one 3-player game played. If you win the 3-player game, you go one rung up. If you lose it, you go one rung down, and if you are second, you stay in the current rang. So very easily structured, but also very nicely. And that is a game from rung 1 against Palino and Pajada. And for Pajada, it could be a special game, because he is at the moment tied for having the most rung 1 wins in the Transcontinental Ladder. And if he wins today, he is on top of the leaderboard of the Honor Roll of Champions. So that could be very nice for him. And yeah, now without further ado, we can take a look at the game, and first of all at the leaders and wonders. And you can see that in H3 we have some theater synergies with Marlene Dietrich, Fleming and Chaplin being there. Also the internet, however no Hollywood, but there's also Gandhi to hide behind, so maybe going for a little bit of a more greedy gameplay could at the end work out. Then we also have some lab leaders with Steve Jobs, Einstein and Sid Meier, together with the Spaceflight, Manhattan Project. Maybe the Empire State Building could be interesting. In H2 we have some strong wonders with the ocean liner service in the Harvard College. There's no Suez Canal, also no James Cook, but there is Maria Theresa together with the ocean liner service. There are also Shakespeare and Darwin as some culture leaders, and then all of the 3 military action leaders are there. In h1 we have Joan of Arc as a military action leader, we have some more strength leaders with Barbarossa and Genghis Khan, and then we have also Gutenberg but no Leonardo. There's Saladin is a very solid leader, Michelangelo, but there's no St. Peter's Basilica, but there's Machu Picchu, some interesting wonders, so it could be an interesting leader, and Eleanor is a transitional leader. Palino opens the game, he's in the first position, and he just starts with taking the engineering genius, and I think then the decision for me is for the first turn relatively clear. I will go for Confucius and the stockpile. Confucius just being a very nice leader, I can take him together with the yellow card. Boudica is also a very nice leader, and there's no leader that really counters her, like Alex, Sansu, or Caesar, that force you to invest into military maybe earlier than you want to. So I could maybe think about her, but then the problem is that I take the chance away to maybe deny Palino from a very strong leader, because if I now go for Confucius, there's maybe the chance that Pajada will just take Hammurabi. Maybe he also wants to go for Boudica plus a yellow card. I think that could be a reasonable pick as well, but I maybe could have an interest in denying Hammurabi from Palino, only leaving Cleopatra available for him, and she's of course also a fine leader, but maybe a bit more tricky. He doesn't have it's unclear for now what wonders there will be available. So with that, and even maybe without that, I think Confucius is just the best pick here, and so I will go for him in stockpile. And Pajada indeed goes for Hammurabi. I was happy to see that, because now Palino has only Cleopatra available as a leader for one civil action. And he will also go for her. Goes for the Acropolis as well for 2 civil actions, interestingly, and then starts upgrading his economy with building a mine. It's interesting that he grabs the Acropolis for 2, however, if he doesn't grab the Acropolis, then there is the chance that, for example, if I take the library for 2, maybe Pajada goes for the Colossus and he is completely without a wonder, leaving him without any chance to use Cleopatra very nicely. But I think taking Acropolis for 2 is also a bit costly, but it's probably a tricky situation, and he at the end decides that he wants to be certain to have a project for Cleopatra to work on to get some guaranteed value out of her. Now it is my turn. I will go for Confucius. I, as you can see, will play the stockpile. And now the main question, of course, was this turn: do I want to go for the library? Do I maybe want to go for the Colossus? Or do I even want to skip my HA wonder? The library would be very fine, I think, to take for 2. I could just build a mine, take the library, and also maybe take a relatively strong wonder away from Pajada. I could also just go for the Colossus, but as we saw, there's no Suez Canal and James Cook, so with that I don't like the Colossus that much. It could maybe still be nice together with Confucius. Maybe I can seed some strength events or colonies, as I want to push anyway, but I at the end made the decision to actually skip the HA wonder. And now, one reason for that is that if I take one of those wonders, the Code of Laws will fall down to 2 civil actions for Pajada, and maybe he will just take it. And with me having Confucius, I think investing my science into the Code of Laws could be very nice. And if it stays now in 3, I think it's very unlikely for Pajada to take it. And for Palino, he has taken the Acropolis for 2, hasn't elected Clio yet, so basically he needs to elect Clio and then increase his population, maybe build the second lab that requires already 3 civil actions, and the Code of Laws will stay on 2 for him. And with that, I was just hoping that a Code of Laws will be available even for 1 civil action, because if Pajada, which I expected, goes for the library, then the Code of Laws is guaranteed to be on 1 civil action for me. And with that, I thought it could maybe be beneficial to not go for the library for 2, which is a bit costly, especially also because there are some interesting wonders that I could get. There's the Silk Road, and after my last video where I analyzed which wonders I had in my World Championship games, you know that I kind of like the Silk Road. There's the Universitas as a very interesting wonder, and there's also maybe Machu Picchu, and with Confucius you have some additional science, so I think it's also fine to maybe just invest into some technologies. So with that, I at the end was just willing to skip the HA wonder, because I could get some nice alternatives, and because the Code of Laws is more likely to be available for me at the next turn. As you can see, I draw the raid and the fighting band. Pajada goes for Hammurabi, builds a mine, increases population. He will get the urban growth and a library, which is definitely not a bad start for him. But as you can see, there is the Silk Road coming down the row, and I was very happy to see that, because that is a very nice wonder to get early on. Maybe Pajada could have even thought about denying it, but it is a bit costly, and maybe I would have actually done it, but maybe I'm also a little bit too much in love with the Silk Road, so no, I think it's also perfectly fine to just go for the library here. Palino will go for Cleopatra, increases his population, builds the second lab, makes use out of the additional resources, and then also builds already one stage of the Acropolis. At the next turn he can finish the Acropolis, use Cleo's resources again, and then be open to maybe take a new wonder. However, he won't be able to take the Silk Road because I will make sure that that one will be taken away this turn. First of all, I will see it. I can basically push in Confucius event only anyway, so I will go with the aggression because I want to keep the tactic. The development of religion is revealed, allowing me to take a free religion. If this development wouldn't have been revealed, I think my turn would have been to just go for Silk Road, build a mine, take the Code of Laws, having the chance to go up to 5 civil actions very early, which works nicely together with the Silk Road, having the Silk Road and getting my production going. However, now I can't go for this turn if I want to take the free religion. And with that, I made a decision to still go for the Code of Laws, but then instead of building a mine, I just built one step of the Silk Road already, starting to invest into that, not going into consumption. Now that the development of religion has already been revealed, I am maybe even less likely to get punished for not having a free population, and at the next turn I can start developing the Code of Laws, maybe then build my mine, and if there is then a 2 resource development revealed soon, I in 2 turns could already just finish the Silk Road, and I would then be quite happy about my situation. So I think I was quite happy to get the Silk Road. I have to pay 2 civil actions for it. It's a bit costly, but I think it's still quite strong for me. However, Pajada also gets some strong options now, because he has Hammurabi, and as you can see, there's an early copy of Monarchy available for him, which will now fall down to 1 civil actions for me. Could even just take the Monarchy and do a revolution to it immediately. However, he makes the decision to still play out his turn and maybe plans to go for revolution at the next turn, because he can take a breakthrough for 1 civil action, can increase the science production already this turn, takes the irrigation as well, so he can just do some interesting and nice stuff, and maybe then can just go for the revolution at the next turn. Then Palino has his turn, and he will just finish the Acropolis, and in order to get a new project for her, he will now go for the Medici Castle, getting even more strength from the wonders and also a bit more culture production, and allowing him to just spend his resource from Cleopatra even more. That means that for me the iron will fall down to 1 civil action, which is interesting. First of all, I at my turn will again seed. I seed the development of religion because Palino didn't have a free population at his turn, and he missed out on the free religion, which is a bit annoying for him. And if the event is revealed relatively quickly, then maybe he could get punished for it. So I made a decision to seed that one into the deck. The development revealed is the development of planning with some interesting options. The options are development of settlement, science, and development of civil life. And at the end, it was relatively clear for me that I have to go for the development of civil life with developing the Code of Laws, because that's just, first of all, very nice to basically have an additional civil action, especially with having the Silk Road, but saving the 1 science also allows me to go for the Code of Laws this turn, while, after seeding with Confucius, still having enough science to go for the iron at the next turn. So if I just take the development of settlement, which is also a very strong development, I would be missing 1 science in order to do this. If I just go for the development of science, I don't have the additional civil action, so I think that is maybe just the best what I can do. I will then increase my population. I will increase my population again. I could build my 3rd mine, however, there's the iron. There is a rich land, so I think that I have a nice opportunity here to just build an iron mine directly at the next turn and save a civil action, which probably is worth more, especially with having the Silk Road. However, if there are no additional resources revealed, it could mean that building a mine now actually results in being able to go for an additional upgrade at the next turn, but there could be some developments revealed, and so I rather just wanted to save the civil action, going for the iron, the rich land, and then at the end I went for the swordsman. I could also consider playing it a bit more greedily, going for the urban growth, because just having more yellow cards in hand could be quite nice with the Silk Road, but there are already 3 military techs on the row. I have the fighting band tactic, Palino has a way to get some more strength going from Justice Wonders, so I think it's just a bit better to have the swordsman in hand, be on the safe side, have a way to get more strength going if needed, and for the urban growth I don't have a clear way how I can use it at the moment, so I think the swordsman should be the best pick here. I draw the Raiders in the Scientific Breakthrough. Pajada makes the decision to go for a revolution, doesn't have corruption, and can now, with the free civil action, take the Knights. So maybe he has a tactic for those already, or he has no tactic and just rather wants to go with the Knights than with the Breakthrough, especially with the Swordsman, especially because with taking the Swordsman, the Engineering Genius would have fallen down for Palino for 1 civil action, which could have been a very interesting card for him. The development of warfare is revealed, which I can nicely use now with having increased my population 2 times. Palino is using the Acropolis bonus, develops the monarchy for 6 science, missing out on a religion. Turned out to be a bit painful for him, but he can still get a discount going, is now at 5 civil and 3 military actions, and at the next turn can maybe finish the Amici castle. Now it's my turn, I have to make a decision on what I want to seed. The raiders probably will hit me, so it's maybe not an ideal event. The scientific breakthrough could be interesting, and maybe we'll have the Silk Road going at the time when it will be revealed. But I just thought Pajada also has the library, and Palino maybe with Cleopatra could go for alchemies, and I want to go for the iron now. So also I have already some additional science from Confucius, so I made a decision to instead seed a blunder, which of course will also give science to all of the opponents, but I wanted to go with the event that gives less science overall. The development of Great Roots is revealed, which I was happy to see, because the 1 additional resource actually allows me to go for an additional iron upgrade, allowing me to snowball very nicely and maybe build up a nice economy. Then I will develop the iron, build 1 iron mine directly using the rich land with the Silk Road bonus. I can go for 1 more upgrade, and after that I have still 2 civil actions left, and I use it to first of all take the engineering genius, which is just a nice card to get for 1 civil action. Probably I don't want to use it in the Silk Road, but there are some interesting wonders after the Silk Road, like Harvard College, Ocean Liner Service, maybe also Universitas or Machu Picchu from H1, so I think there might be a chance to use that, maybe even with the Silk Road bonus for 4 resources. And then I have still 1 civil action left. I basically have to take another card, and I think there could be some interesting ones. But there's no Pierre in the game. I have already a free religion, so the Breton Circus is not that interesting. Drama could be more interesting, because I at the beginning talked about the theater synergy in H3. There is Marlene Dietrich, but there is no Bach. If there would be also Bach, maybe I think I would consider it more to just take the drama here, but at the end I went with the reserves, because with having the Silk Road, that is basically like a reserves 2 if I find the right time to use it. And that I think is also a very nice card to get for 1 civil action. At the next turn I might have the option to just finish the Silk Road, then being able to maybe take 1 more card from the row, maybe for example Richland if it should still be available, and then I have 3 science production going, also a bit of culture production, and already my iron mines. I'm prepared to go for some new wonders very nicely with the engineering genius, and I overall felt relatively nice about my start so far. Also, I will reveal the fighting band tactic now, putting me to 3 strength, because the event deck could flip, and that makes it a bit harder for Pajada to maybe overtake me in strength, especially because he maybe just wants to finish the library, and with that doesn't have that many resources left to also invest into the military, so it just increases the chance that I don't get punished by a strength event at my next turn. I draw a colonization card. Pajada goes for the iron for 3 civil actions, which is a bit costly, but it allows him to go for 2 upgrades immediately, still having enough resources to finish the library at the next turn, and also being prepared to maybe go for some potentially strong H2 wonders or another H1 wonder. So I think even though it's costly, he has a Murabi and the monarchy, so that mitigates the cost a little bit, and with that I think it's definitely nice to just go for this iron, and also leaving maybe Palino without an option to upgrade his economy very nicely. Palino seeds, the development of crafts are revealed, giving him 2 additional resources. He will this turn finish the Amici castle with the bonus from Cleopatra. The additional resource from development of crafts maybe are even a little bit annoying for him, because now he maybe has to build a warrior to get out of corruption, or build maybe something else. And he makes the decision to build something else, and using Gutenberg for that, thanks to him he can develop the alchemy for 3 science, and then can go for 1 upgrade without Gutenberg, which is maybe not that ideal, because of course you ideally want to get a lot of activations out of him, but on the other hand, he at least gets the science production earlier, he has a way to get out of corruption. Maybe he could have thought about building an additional lab, because he has Acropolis and Amici castles, maybe doesn't have to be too much afraid of being a little bit greedy, but he can also still do this at a future turn, just maybe building an additional lab, going for some upgrades if he wants to get some more Gutenberg activation. So maybe there's also not really a need to commit to this already, but it could have also been maybe an interesting option. Now it's my turn. I again have to push, and this turn, if I don't want to see the colonization cards, I have to go for one of those events. And things for the scientific breakthrough are still that maybe I have Confucius some additional science already, and now Pajada will go for the library, Palino will go for alchemies. But now the event deck has flipped, meaning I have some time to prepare for the scientific breakthrough maybe. So if I maybe get a chance to go for something like scientific method, or maybe even Universitas or Harvard College, I can maybe prepare for that and get some nice value out of the scientific breakthrough. So I made a decision to put that event into the deck. And the event revealed is the historic territory, which at the end is won by Pajada. I just put one warrior on the colonization card. Pajada wins it for one warrior and has now an additional happy phase. Palino at the moment is a little bit vulnerable to the rebellion, and so I was also hoping that maybe that event is revealed relatively quickly, especially because it stays late in the deck. It could be a bit problematic for me, because if I increase my population, then I will maybe have an unhappy worker when the age will end and I will lose the 2 yellow tokens. This turn I will start with taking the breakthrough, because this card is just so valuable, especially with having the Silk Road. Getting 3 additional signs for 1 civil action is just very strong, and so I definitely wanted to take it. The question is then, do I just want to finish the Silk Road, not doing anything else, or do I maybe want to upgrade an iron mine, increase my population, maybe only building some steps of the Silk Road, basically instead of getting the 1 science and 2 culture, getting 1 resource, which could maybe be fine. I could also be thinking about taking maybe another copy of Richland, even though after having gone for the last iron upgrade, maybe that's not ideal, because if I go for the ocean liner service potentially, then maybe I won't be able to use that Richland very nicely. And so at the end, with me having very decent production, also in engineering genius, and with me still needing a government form at some point, I made a decision to just finish the Silk Road with not taking any cards. I also make it that Barbarossa stays on 2 civil actions. Pajada has some food lying around, has just sent a warrior away for a colony, so I think Barbarossa could be interesting for him, and maybe it's nice to let him pay an additional civil action for him. I could even think about going for Barbarossa myself, but I don't have that much food saved up. Maybe if possible I want to delay it a little bit, using my food to increase my population if the rebellion is late, so I rather wanted to wait for a different leader like Saladin, or maybe Eleanor could also still be a nice transitional leader, Michelangelo, to go for some wonders, so I just was waiting for one of those leaders. The Warfare maybe also could have been an interesting card, allowing me to easily go for the Republic without having to worry about being low military actions, but if you remember, in H2 there are all of the military action leaders, so at the end I just really wanted to finish the Silk Road. Pajada will go for Barbarossa, using him 1 time immediately, and another time immediately going up to 4 strength, making sure that he's not the weakest, and then he still has enough resource left to just finish the library, going up to 3 science production, and then he will go for the rich land, allowing him to go for 1 more cheap upgrade at the next turn. Now it's Palino's turn. He's the strongest, and he seeds. There is no rebellion revealed, also no strength event, instead it's just a blunder that I have seeded. And he will now use Gutenberg again, going up to 4 science production, takes the frugality, takes the cultural heritage, goes for the code of laws, which he can develop at the next turn, making sure that he will be on 6 civil actions, and if he doesn't take it, then Pajada might get it, and then both of them are on monarchy, so it might be important for Palino to have this additional card available. Now it is my turn, and as you can see I have seeded already. Don't want to push a colonization card, so I seeded the raiders. There is definitely the danger that I might at the end get hit by it, but it's also not the most relevant event, so at the end I was fine with just pushing that into the deck. The knowledge of the ancients is revealed, where I get a little bit punished for missing out on my HA wonder, getting less science out of this event than my opponents. And then this turn it's still H1, and I can make a decision on a leader, and as you can see I go for Saladin here. In other situations, I think with it being that late in H1, it definitely could be considered to go for Eleanor instead. She also will give me some additional civil actions. If I get a new leader early, she's a very nice transitional leader, and she will give me some additional draw, some additional culture, so a nice package. But at this point, with Pajada having Barbarossa, with Palino having Acropolis Imici Castle, I just thought maybe it's... And with me having a nice economy, I don't want to overinvest into the military at the moment. I don't want to be forced to cede. I have only 2 military actions, so I think here Saladin is maybe just a more solid leader, and at the end I made a decision to go for him. So I will elect him. I will upgrade my iron mines to get out of corruption, and now I have to think about what do I want to do about this potential rebellion, because if I increase my population now, and then the age will end, I will lose 2 yellow tokens and I will be vulnerable to it. I don't want to build an additional religion. I don't necessarily want to use my actions this turn to just go for theology or something, so I made a decision to just stay on my current amount of food, but to get out of corruption I then have to invest a bit more resources, and I made a decision to go for the swordsman, using the breakthrough with the Silk Road bonus, making it that even if there's a very early government form available the next turn, even after investing some science, I still have enough science left to go for a government form, leaving the option open to get a really big boost at the next turn. And then after having developed the swordsman, I will go for another upgrade, and that allows me to get out of corruption, also makes it that I'm stronger than Pajada in case there's still a strength event coming. There's the rebellion, and then I think there's maybe one unknown event, or maybe I actually know the other event. We will see it. I think there have been now 2 Confucius events revealed. Oh no, actually the Knowledge of the Ancients, so I think the other event should be a Confucius event. Yeah, I know that there's the Rebellion, a Confucius event coming, but still getting stronger than Pajada maybe will lead to him potentially doing some investments just to get stronger if he's afraid of a strength event, and so that could also be nice. And yeah, so I'm just a bit stronger, and with my last civil action, now that I don't want to increase my population, I have to take something from the row. I could go for the theology, but I think it would be nicer to maybe wait for an age 2 happy face solution now that I have the chance, and instead I just went for another copy of reserves. Just again because with the Silk Road I think those are providing a decent amount of value. I could have gone for the alchemy, but I was rather eyeing the universitas here that I maybe want to go for at the next turn. With that you could maybe argue that I could even want to let it stay on on the 3 civil actions area for Pajada, making it very costly for him to go for it. Now he could potentially consider taking it away, but there's also Machu Picchu that he could consider, and there are some interesting wonders in H2, so maybe if he goes for it he will just be blocked from another wonder. So I was at the end thinking that's not too important to let it stay in the 3 civil action area, because if it will be available for me the next turn, it might be just nice to go for it, take and finish it, be prepared for the scientific breakthrough that is coming. But if there may be some interesting options from H2, and I'm prepared for some nice ones like Harvard College Ocean Liner Service, a government for maybe scientific method, I can also just go for that. So yeah, I was hoping that at the next turn I will have some nice options, and going for the Universitas was one option that I thought could be very interesting. Also, I made the decision to actually discard a colonization card, because in case the rebellion hasn't been pushed out, I thought it could be very important to have an event to push. It's of course really not ideal that I then would need to push the uncertain borders, but maybe I hopefully will have a way to not be the weakest. And now when the age will end, Palino will potentially use 4 civil actions to that, so I really wanted to make sure to hit him with this event in case he doesn't fix his happy faces at the next turn. The age ends already now, so I was kind of hoping maybe Pajada might see it, but he's the weakest, and he instead just goes for an iron upgrade. He doesn't go for the Universitas, instead goes for the Machu Picchu. He has already some decent science production that he can maybe further upgrade with either going for scientific methods or journalisms, and he has the irrigation enhanced, so the Machu Picchu, with being available for 1 civil action cheaper, might be the better option for him. Palino offers the Trade Routes Agreement for me, allowing me to use 1 resource as a food during my turn. He will be able to use 1 food as a resource, which will allow him now to go down to 0 food, or maybe if he wants to go for some irrigation production, he then can transform some of those additional foods into resources, which might be nice for him. But I thought this pact also has some benefits for me potentially, because now if I increase my population at the next turn, ideally after the rebellion has been revealed, I could for example take Universitas, finish it, increase my population using the pact, making it that I then would be at 3 food, meaning with using the pact again I then would be able to increase my population. There's of course the small danger that Palino could then cancel the pact, but at the end I thought it is worth the shot and could maybe help me to get an additional population out, which is always helpful. Palino then goes for the Code of Laws, has still 5 science left afterwards, goes for the irrigation and goes for some upgrades, so with that there's also a higher chance maybe that I can keep the pact for longer. He could have fixed his happy faces, but of course he doesn't have knowledge about the rebellion, and maybe doesn't want to invest now science and resources into the Burden Circuses when he can also upgrade his economy. Now it is my turn, and sadly there have been no events pushed, meaning if I want to be able to increase my population, it would be very nice to get a rebellion out of the deck. Sadly, even if I see it, it's not guaranteed that the rebellion will be revealed, but I still wanted to give it a shot. Even though it's a bit risky to see the uncertain borders, I just wanted to get this rebellion out now that it will hit Palino that heavily. So I see it, and the card revealed is sadly not a rebellion, meaning I have to see what I will do about this at my turn. Instead, the raid is revealed. And as I said, if the rebellion would have been revealed, I really would have liked to go for Universitas, increase my population, as that would also get me out of corruption. But now I just made the decision, instead of increasing my population and fixing my happy faces somehow, I just wanted to again not go into the next area of my yellow bank and staying with no happy faces like that. I played the reserves with the Silk Road bonus, just as one additional action instead of increasing my population. Then I will go for the Universitas. Now I can use the Engineering Genius for 3 resources and have already used the other card for the Silk Road bonus. I could also keep it in hand, but I have now already 2 wonders, so there's definitely maybe a chance that I will go for one of those strong H2 wonders. I would be very happy if that should happen, but I just rather wanted to use it now for certain. Even if I don't use it, I still would be in corruption. And so that was my turn, going up to 5 science production, being nicely prepared for the scientific breakthrough, having easily enough science to go for a government form, and now with Saladin also having 6 civil actions. I feared that with me not increasing my population, maybe that could be a hint to Palino that there is a rebellion coming, but the problem for him is that he has only 3, or with the pact 4 resources, and that is not really enough at the moment to fix his happy faces completely, so maybe he at the end will still get hit by the rebellion. I will draw some events, the Iconoclasm and the Prosperity, and then Pajada will at his turn go for the Justice system, also making sure that he goes up to 6 civil actions like Palino. Will finish the Machu Picchu, is now at 8 resource production, and then goes for the irrigation, goes for an upgrade. The Machu Picchu, going for that instead of the Universitas, also has the big advantage for him that the food is actually very helpful with having Barbarossa, maybe allowing him to go for even more activations during H2. So I think with that the Machu Picchu was very likely the better choice than the Universitas, and now he can even go for Barbarossa activation already the next turn with that, maybe also make sure that he is not the weakest any longer. Now it's Palino's turn. Sadly he won't push, which maybe would have prevented him from going for this coal, or definitely would have prevented him. So sadly he can go for the coal, but investing into that would at least mean that he's at the next turn then maybe will lose the 4 civil actions, because at my turn, thanks to drawing some events, I will be able to push. It could have been maybe interesting also to go for Darwin potentially, because Gutenberg maybe won't have that many activations any longer, but no, instead of going for Darwin, electing him, going for coal, and then going for an upgrade, Palino makes the decision to go for just the reserves. He doesn't know if he gets the team spots yet, maybe still has a chance to get Darwin at the next turn for 1 civil action cheaper, and then maybe also has the chance to get another Gutenberg activation before potentially going for Darwin. Thanks to the pact he can go for this upgrade, so sadly the pact has given him some nice value, while for me I couldn't go for the plan with increasing my population. But this turn Palino didn't fix his happy faces still, and didn't really have the nice chance to do this, and so I will just cede and made the decision to push the Prosperity, because for now I didn't want to commit to the Iconoclasm. The rebellion is revealed, Palino will lose 4 civil actions, so that's definitely a big setback for him, and as you can see I made the decision to go for the scientific method this turn. I have already some strong science production, so maybe I should rather concentrate myself on other areas, but the problem is if I don't take it, then Pajada, who has a lot of resource production, can easily go for it and will be rewarded immediately with the scientific breakthrough being in the deck, so I rather just wanted to go for even more science production myself and then getting tons of value out of the scientific breakthrough. The question is, how do I want to do it? I could just develop the scientific method and go for one upgrade already, but there's also the architecture, and with me having a lot of science and not having built any urban buildings yet, that has a lot of potential. Also with me maybe wanting to go for even more wonders with having nice resource production, so I wanted to go for the architecture as well. I could now develop the architecture, develop the scientific method, go for an upgrade. However, that would mean that I don't get out of corruption, so the architecture doesn't really help me saving some resources. It could still be nice, because I will go up to 7 science production even, and especially if there's the scientific breakthrough revealed, that might be worth more than the resources. But I also have a lot of science already available, so I thought maybe it's more important to save the resources, maybe get out of corruption this turn with increasing my population two times, and then at the next turn I can start going for scientific method. Ideally the scientific breakthrough hasn't been revealed until then already, and then I will be able to get a lot of value out of it. I will still develop the architecture and increase my population two times. I could have also taken one of those yellow cards, but I rather wanted to have the architecture already going, not only because I want to go for the scientific method anyway, or maybe want to go for the scientific method, but also because it could actually allow me to go for a very strong wonder finishing turn at the next turn, if there's a wonder available. Now, for example, here I can take it for 4 civil actions and just finish it. If there's an ocean liner service, it could potentially be nice to have the architecture already developed, and I could just take and finish it immediately. If there's no wonder, I can go for very cheap scientific method upgrades. I didn't go for the selective breeding this turn, but both of my opponents have irrigation, so I don't think I need to pay 3 civil actions for that. I then will also build one swordsman, just making sure that I'm the strongest, because I know that there's uncertain borders coming. Maybe I have not a chance to even win that event at the end. Pajada will now go for the rifleman, develops them, goes for an upgrade, takes the breakthrough and also the organized religion, making sure to have a happy face solution, and he actually used Barbarossa to go for an additional rifleman, is now the strongest, and it's just very nice to use Barbarossa to build some H2 units. Palino will replace the pact that we had before with the international trade agreement, which I will happily accept. Getting some additional food production hopefully will be nice for me. The resource production of course might help Palino as well, but it's just too much value that I get out of this for myself as well, so of course I will accept it. Palino then will go for one more upgrade to coal, can also use Gutenberg, could now go for Darwin, or actually not. If he plays it like that, could have still maybe played the turn a bit differently and gone for Darwin, but maybe that didn't work out that nicely. There's also Maria Theresa coming down the row, and she can also be a very interesting leader, especially if he maybe can also get the ocean liner service at some point. And so his turn of course also wasn't really that big, because he only had 2 civil actions available after getting hit by the rebellion. I was happy to see that at my turn there are some government forms coming down the row, and with the strategy being on the row as well and me having a lot of science, I made a decision to go for the Republic, also because the one additional civil action from the Republic is actually quite useful to have for me. If, of course with the Conman maybe I could just skip the strategy, but Pajada has a military potential and the 3 additional strength could be quite useful for me, so I went for the Republic. I can develop it, I can go for 2 scientific method upgrades, putting me at 9 science production, maybe preparing myself very nicely for the scientific breakthrough, and thanks to going for the Republic I have now still 3 instead of only 2 civil actions left, and there are actually a lot of interesting cards in the row. There's the selective breeding that I definitely want to take, the strategy now I definitely want to take with the Republic, there's the revolutionary idea, which is a nice card, especially with the Silk Road, but I will have so much science that I think I don't necessarily need it, but the Cavalryman and the Organized Religion are also both cards that could be very interesting, so because I need a happy face solution and I also don't have a cavalry technology, so it's actually a bit of a tough decision. I could have maybe gone for 1 scientific method upgrade less, playing it a bit less greedily, making sure to get all of those cards, but then I might also miss out potentially in 4 science, which is also worth quite a bit, and so at the end I was willing to play it a bit greedily. I took the strategy, the selective breeding and the organized religion, but potentially being at the risk of missing out on the cavalry technology, but for now I don't know whether I will need a cavalry technology in the near future. There's still a chance to get a second copy. I could have also not taken the organized religion, but then there's only the team spots left. Palino really needs a happy face solution, so if the team spots in the row he grabs it very likely for very costly. Maybe the cavalryman won't be taken for that many civil actions by him as the team spots would be, so I think I rather made a decision to commit to the organized religion, but as said, it could also be an option to just play it a bit less greedily, go for only 1 scientific method upgrade and then also take the cavalryman already, but I just wanted to get up to 9 science production with the scientific breakthrough being in the deck. I then discard the iconoclasm. Maybe it could be interesting to keep, but I rather wanted to keep both colonization cards. I draw the autonomous territory, Pajada seeds, the uncertain borders are revealed. I at the end was mostly happy that I just didn't lose to it. I mostly pushed it to have a chance to get the rebellion out of the deck, and now not being part of it, what was at the end a nice outcome for me. then pajada will go for the copy of cavalryman that I left for him, goes for the revolutionary deer, and he will also go for the Eiffel Tower, interestingly, but I think it makes sense because he has a lot of resource production, so can invest those nicely into the Eiffel Tower, and the happy face also maybe allows him to easily go for another Barbarossa activation. Palino will seed now, and now the scientific breakthrough is revealed, so me going for an additional upgrade rewards me now with basically in total 4 additional science, and I really have a lot of science to work with now. Palino will go for Maria Theresa, elects her, and then uses her immediately with using the frugality to get an additional science, goes for 1 upgrade to coal, takes the rifleman and also the opera. There is some theater synergy in H3, and also he does know for certain if he gets the last happy face solution, so having those operas might be quite important for him. And as you can see at my turn, there is the ocean liner service available. I have already a collection of my favorite wonders lying around, so just adding another one of those to the list I think is very nice. I have a lot of civil actions, I have the architecture, just going for the ocean liner service, finishing it, I think is just very strong after getting the ocean liner service. Also having that much science, having the strategy in hand, I was very, I felt that I have a very strong position that has a lot of potential. However, the other players also managed to build up something nice, maybe especially pajada, who will have the Eiffel Tower, maybe get some more Barbarossa activations. There's also the potential to upgrade the science production very nicely. And Palino has now 10 resource production every turn, has saved up a lot of science, can easily go for an H3 government form if this is one available early. So my opponents also have something nice going, but I felt I definitely don't have to hide my civilization from theirs. Then I will use the ocean liner service, of course, and then there are some cards that I definitely want to take. The first one is the cannons, the second one the wave of nationalism. I already missed out on the first copy of cavalryman, so I think I definitely want to take the cannons here, and the wave might just give me a lot of resources, with me potentially being the weakest in the near future, and then with the Silk Road that just might give me 7 additional resources, which is really a lot. And now I have 1 civil action left. I could of course take the journalisms, but I don't think I really need them with being at 9 science production, so instead I just rather develop the strategy, going up to 10 strength, making sure that I'm the strongest. There are the raiders coming, so I might avoid getting hit by this event, and also making sure to draw more cards, increasing my chances to maybe still get an H2 tactic. I will then draw some cards, 2 wars over territory, so if I should draw also a tactic, maybe that could be an interesting option. Pajada seeds and a good harvest is revealed. That is actually quite nice for him, because with the additional food production that he has from the Machu Picchu, he has now a lot of food saved up, allowing him to actually go for 2 Barbarossa activations this turn. He will go for the cavalryman, goes for 1 activation, a second activation, goes for the organized religion to fix his happy faces, and then takes the frugality, the engineering genius, which he can very nicely use in the Eiffel Tower, and also reveals the classic army tactic already, putting him at 16 strength and making him look a little bit threatening. He has already 4 infantry units. If he goes for 2 more cavalryman units, he might be able to in the near future go for 2 cavalry, for 2 classic army tactics, which might be a bit threatening, especially if he maybe also gets Napoleon on top of that. Now it's Palino's turn. He will see it, and the event revealed are the raiders. Sadly, I will now lose some stuff to it, but losing a little bit of food is maybe not too bad with now having the ocean liner service. Palino will play the cultural heritage before he will lose it to the end of the age, will develop the rifleman, which allows him to use some additional resources with Maria. He managed to get the last copy of a happy face solution in form of the team sports, allowing him to have now some happy population available, goes for some more upgrades, is now at 13 strength, still allowing him to go for another 3 additional resources with Maria the next turn. With the frugality also he's prepared to increase his population a bunch of times at his next turn. Now it is my turn, and this turn I will skip the politics action, because I don't really want to push any of those colonies. Maybe I could go for the navigation, but I thought that the autonomous territory might just help my opponents more than it helps me, because I have already a lot of civil actions, and the strategic territory I could maybe see it, but I also don't necessarily wanted to go for the navigation this turn. And so I will use the ocean liner service this turn to increase my population. I will play the wave of nationalism, as you can see, for 7 additional resources, and I was very happy to see that there is a copy of cavalryman available for me, so I don't get punished for missing out on the other one earlier. And now there is the classic army tactic revealed, meaning with going for the cavalryman, I have now a chance to just copy the tactic, and with that hopefully have a decent amount of strength going. So I will develop the organized religion, go for an upgrade, have now a bunch of happy population, allowing me to take the cavalryman, build 2 of them, use all of the additional resources that I got for the military, and at the next turn I can maybe copy the classic army tactic. This turn I will end with just doing some efficient stuff for me, but maybe I make a mistake here, because I think I maybe should have done a slightly worse turn for myself in order to remove some very strong options for pajada. Because I need only to take 1 more card from the row in order to anti-age, and if I anti-age, pajada loses Barbarossa, and at the moment he still has the chance to get 1 activation going. But he not only has the chance to get 1 activation going, if he should make the decision to see it, which is definitely possible, then the prosperity will be revealed, allowing him even to go for 2 Barbarossa activations at his next turn, just before the age will end. And this, I think, was an oversight by me, because Barbarossa activation is just worth a lot, saving a civil action and a food and a resource per activation. And potentially going for 2 of them I think is too much value, and I at the end played my turn like this, taking rich land reserves, 2 more yellow cards for the Silk Road, allowing myself to very cheaply fix my famine as soon as I might have some problems with that, and then I just played the reserves for 2 additional resources, as I thought it might be useful to have those resources around. And it also is somewhat, not really, with having those additional resources, at least I threaten to have enough resources to go for 2 cavalrymen and swordsmen at the next turn, potentially copying the tactic. Of course, I don't have enough military actions for it, but if pajada thinks about going for a war and going for Napoleon or something like this, then maybe it could be interesting to threaten a little bit more strength, because there could be a card revealed that gives me more military actions. But I think instead of either playing the reserves or taking a rich land, instead of one of those actions, I just should have taken either the opera. There is some nice synergy for it, it might be nice to have it anyway, also with having the architecture, or I should have taken the navigation. I am not sure if there maybe was a specific reason why I didn't want to take another card from the row, but I don't think any of those reasons at the end is strong enough to compare to not ending the age, so I think that was an oversight by me. Navigation or opera are cards that might be useful for me anyway, and with that I should have taken one of them and make sure to end the age. And now, instead I don't do this, the age will go on for 1 more turn, making myself stronger than pajada, maybe preventing him from seed. Maybe he thinks there's a strength event coming, but sadly he pushes, the prosperity is revealed, he gets 4 additional food, and now there's also Napoleon revealed. And I think I just left him with too much value here, as you can see, can go for another 2 activations of Barbarossa, gets the civil action back when replacing him, is now at 30 strength, can even go for 1 more upgrade, putting himself at 36 strength, and then takes the cannons, making it a bit awkward for Palino, who's now no military technology available. He's nicely prepared to maybe go for some H3 ones with having this big resource production. But it could be a bit annoying for them if those military techs are late, and pajada with that is also prepared for maybe some H3 tactics. Yeah, so that is very strong for pajada, and probably I should have prevented it by ending the age. I am not sure, I don't remember it exactly how much I considered this. Maybe it was just an oversight. Maybe I didn't realize the prosperity that would result in even additional activation. But no, at the end I think that is a turn that I could have denied from pajada, which now makes him quite threatening. I at least will be able to copy the classic army tactic, but still it's looking quite a bit threatening now. Palino will now go for the architecture. He has a lot of science and maybe just wants to save some resource and potentially some civil actions later on. He goes for team sports. Has now enough happy faces again, will use Maria's resource to go for another rifleman, is now at 19 strength, might be in danger of getting hit by an aggression, but he has the magic castle, and now he really has to hope that maybe in the near future there are some military techs revealed. I get a little bit lucky here because I have the opportunity to take a very early copy of Air Forces, which makes it a lot easier for me to threaten enough strength and respond to pajada's strength push, and just securing the first copy of Air Forces for myself, which can be very strong. So I was very happy to see that. Maybe getting a bit less punished for my mistake in the turn before than I could have been, even though I can always copy the classic army and threaten enough to go for a second one. But now with the Air Forces I can could just do that all a lot more easily. I can go for Catherine. I can increase my population once normally. I can take the air forces, develop the air forces, build one getting out of corruption, copying the classic army tactic, putting myself at 36 strength as well. And after doing all of this, I have now one civil action left. And as you can see, I made the decision to take the journalism, which was not the first card that I really considered, because first I thought maybe I just take a copy of Efficient Upgrade. I could also develop something already, but I for now wanted to rather save up my science. I don't need the selective breeding in the near future, I don't need the cannons in the near future. So I thought about just going for the Efficient Upgrade, because at some point I probably want to go for selective breedings. But if I want to go for that, I already have the rich land in hand, and going for a second upgrade is maybe not really necessary. Could be nice to do it if it's very cheap, but maybe it's not really necessary. Maybe I just want to do it very late, but at that point the age might have already ended. And if I want to go for computers, then I don't get a full potential of the efficient upgrade. I mean, it still saved me 3 resources, so I just wouldn't get the Silk Road bonus. But I have a lot of science, and maybe you don't necessarily need to go for computers. If you want to do it to go for an upgrade to organized religion, it only gives me 2 resources, which is not that much. So at the end I thought maybe the efficient upgrade is not that much needed. Maybe the thing where I could use this the most would be in order to go for an earlier oil. That could be very interesting, but as you can see, the first copy of oil is already falling down the row. I think maybe if both of the oils would still be in the deck, maybe that would already enough to lead me towards the efficient upgrade, but at the end I rather went for the journalism, just having a way to increase my culture production and be prepared for Fleming, who could be potentially an interesting leader for me. I will keep the events, the colonization cards. I do draw an early war, which could potentially be interesting. Also the impact of balance. Pajada doesn't go for an aggression, instead he will seed, and on top there's an event I think seeded by Palino, and as you can see it gives him also the most value, the new deposits, which result and sadly in more resources for my opponents than for me. Pajada this turn will finish the Eiffel Tower, goes for 2 more upgrades, is now at 44 strength again, putting pressure on his opponents, takes the scientific method, the breakthrough, and the engineering. I think it's interesting that he goes for the scientific method, because it's relatively late. It's of course still quite nice to go for it. There are some leaders that synergize with it, but maybe it could also be better to just wait for potential H3 solutions like multimedia or computers, especially because there is a card like reserves that he could take instead. But I mean, now he's guaranteed to have the chance to invest into those things with the engineering, so if he goes for that immediately the next turn, it also might still be quite nice for him. And now it's the end of the turn. We can maybe also take a quick look at the overview, and we can see it's actually quite close. The culture is very close, and all players have some stuff going. Palino maybe has the most dangerous position, he has the least civil actions. Oh, he has actually the same as Pajada, but only 6 civil actions for now, but he can easily upgrade it in case he gets an H3 government form. And he has tons of resources, not the most population, and is at the moment lacking a military tech, but as you can see tanks are coming down the row, so that will help him a lot to also copy the classic army tactic, and then hopefully for him have a way to get enough strength going. So he definitely has some stuff going, especially with tons of resource and science saved up. Pajada has more culture production for now, is really threatening with the strength at the moment. But if he doesn't get air forces soon, then it's also maybe not that threatening for both me and Palino, with being able to copy the classic army tactic, at least in the near future. But he has also lots of production, can increase his civilization very nicely, especially if there's maybe something like multimedia or computers available for him at the next turn. And I have the most civil action, the ocean liner service, Silk Road, have the air forces, have maybe nice ways to increase my culture production, so I also like my position still, but it's relatively close overall, I would say. Palino makes the decision to cede. The international agreement is revealed, allowing Pajada to maybe take some additional cards at this turn. Palino goes for the tanks and will again use Maria's resource. Maria already at this turn generated him a lot of additional resources. He has a lot of resource anyway, but still, having even more is not bad, and at the next turn he can maybe again potentially use the additional resource from her. And then he also takes the reserves in the revolutionary idea. Now it is my turn. I could potentially seed an event, but impact of balance is quite a bit unclear. Could backfire quite heavily if Palino maybe goes for mechanized agriculture and just uses the resource to upgrade his economy very nicely. Also pajada has the chance to go for a big balance potentially, so I didn't want to commit to this impact, I didn't want to cede one of those colonies, so I just used Catherine's ability as my politics phase. And this turn there are the first leaders coming down the row. And those are definitely all potentially interesting. If I expect the game to be very military heavy, maybe Marlene Dietrich's ability could be very important. Could maybe try to deny her, but I don't have theaters. My opponents don't have theaters at the moment. Palino has a copy of Opera in hand, so I don't think Marlene has to be really considered here. But there's Einstein and there's Fleming, and I have used Catherine's ability. Having additional military action is still quite nice, but now having the chance to switch to a new leader might be nice as well. And now it might actually benefit me that I have taken the journalism at a turn before with Fleming and the movies being available. And so at the end I made the decision to go for the movies, build one going up to 10 culture production, and I made the decision to go for Fleming immediately. Maybe it could also be fine to keep Catherine even longer, but Fleming increased my culture production immediately by 1, and one thing that also shouldn't be underestimated is actually the amount of information that I can now get out of him. Electing him very early in a 3-player game, I will be able to constantly switch each turn which player's hand I will take a look, and it definitely could help me a lot about figuring out what impacts are in there, and that should not be underestimated. I think the impact that this has, I can see if maybe there's the danger of war, if there's the danger of an aggression. It just is some helpful stuff in addition to the 3 culture, and at the next turn I maybe already can go for the journalisms and then go for even more culture production. I could instead consider going for Einstein, increasing my science production even more, and I have that much science and civil actions that I at least should be able to go for 1 technology every turn, maybe even more. So I think Einstein could also be very fine, especially because Einstein might even be might probably be the better leader for Pajada. There is the multimedia coming down the row. I thought that might be a very interesting option for Pajada to go for. And if he goes for that, I think Einstein is probably the better fit for him than Fleming, because he doesn't know if he gets the last copy of movies, and it's just a very big boost to his science production if he manages to get Einstein plus a multimedia going. So I could maybe go for Einstein, but then there would still be Fleming, and with having the journalisms in hand, maybe even having the chance to go for the second copy of multimedia, after that one will probably be taken away. I just thought Fleming has the bigger potential, especially also taking account his spy ability, but of course mostly maybe the raw culture production. I will have then some civil actions left, and I will just use all of them to take some yellow cards. Could maybe thought about a professionals ball, just a card that's nice for a lot of impacts, but I have the organized religion already, and at the end, Red I wanted to have the efficient upgrade. Last turn I didn't go for the efficient upgrade, but there's one different, some things are different now. First of all, this one doesn't get lost at the end of H3, meaning I can just keep it in hand for a long time, maybe go for the second farm upgrade. And I have the impact of balance, giving me a big push to maybe actually go for 2 farm upgrades in order to have a decent balance, maybe making this a seedable impact. I then keep this impact and also 1 war in hand. I will draw some more impacts, especially the impact of variety could be quite nice for me, and I also have another war in hand. Pajada uses the international agreement in order to take some cards. He will go for Einstein, elects him, goes for the engineering, goes for the multimedia, gets 6 culture out of him already this turn, and 3 science, so that's a lot of value, and will have the chance to develop even more technologies. So I was a bit afraid that this is giving him a really big boost, but I also was happy about my 11 culture production that I can improve even more if I go for 1 journalism at the next turn. There's also an internet coming down the row, which could be a very interesting wonder for me, but might be taken away by Palino, especially if he goes for something like Sid Meier on computers. The freedom of movement is revealed. He will move 1 rifleman to tank, maybe an indicator that he has something like shock troops in hand. He goes for computers, goes for Sid Meier, and he will actually go for computer Sid Meier's, but instead of taking the internet, he rather prefers it to just get the production going as much as possible, which I think makes sense because there are some other interesting wonders that he could go for, like spaceflight, maybe United Nations or Empire State Building could be somewhat fine as well. So I think that makes sense. Sadly for him this time, he doesn't find a nice way to use Maria's additional resources, but it's maybe not too bad for him. Now it is my turn, and first of all I can take a look at a hand of my opponent. Palino didn't draw that many cards yet, so I made a decision to take a look at Pajada's hand, and I saw something interesting and also a little bit threatening there. Because, the most important things maybe that I saw is that he has one war in hand, and he has the modern army tactic in hand. He has cannons in hand, he has the military theory in hand, he will get a second copy of Air Forces, and he has enough time left to prepare for potentially a very big war, has enough science to go for cannons, military theory, and Air Forces, and it might be a bit costly, he doesn't have that much population, but he can maybe use the freedom of movement, put a cavalryman something else, either in multimedia or maybe organized religion, can maybe disband some stuff, and then it would be very threatening. So from now on I have to be very careful. At least he doesn't really have a nice impact for himself at the moment. The only impact that he has is impact of government, and for that one at the moment at least I'm prepared better. So the question is, after seeing this, how greedy do I play my turn? But first of all, I have to consider seeding, and I have a nice impact plus potential other playable ones. So I wanted to start seeding, even though I'm the weakest. I will get stronger this turn, but my opponents might get stronger again as well. And so I made a decision to seed, but as you can see, I actually get punished for it. Sadly, the refugees are revealed. Losing the population doesn't have a big impact immediately, but long term, if I need to build a lot of military, could still be bad. And of course, the culture swing is also not really great to suffer against Pajada. So I was of course not happy to see this. At least there is now a nice impact for me in the deck. But with the refugees, Pajada also more easily has potentially enough population available in order to make some war plans worth for him. Then I will start with using the ocean liner service, and I made a decision with having this urban growth in hand. Building one journalism is very cheap and just increase my culture and also science production by quite a lot. Also, as you can see, I used the freedom of movement to put a worker from scientific method to movies. I could have put it also into the military and just staying at one movies, but I thought that I can maybe just this turn still increase my culture production by quite a bit, and hopefully still afterwards have enough to threaten relatively big amount of strength. So I made a decision to do this, especially because Pajada can go for the war. Even after getting the one additional population, it could be somewhat costly, and I didn't want to slow down my development too much to then maybe just Pajada continuing the game peacefully. So I made a decision to use the freedom of movement to increase my culture production. If I don't go for that, it's a lot of culture production that I miss out on for the rest of the game. And I built one Air Force using my one free military action, making myself the strongest. And as a safety measure, as you can see, I go for the Manhattan Project and the Engineering Genius here. My first instinct was to go for the Internet and the Engineering Genius, but I came to the conclusion that it is too greedy, because Pajada, if he goes for two modern armies with Air Forces, then just going for classic armies is just not enough to defend myself, and I might need a bit of additional strength with getting the Engineering Genius. The Manhattan Project is relatively cheap, and the Internet, if I make this very big, makes me just an even bigger war target. But I was also a bit concerned, because as said, Pajada might also just continue the game peacefully. He has some nice stuff going for himself, could maybe just continue going for movies and build up something very nice for himself. And then having the Manhattan Project instead of something like the Internet might of course make my chances quite a bit less good in case the game remains peaceful. But I felt like Pajada might try something with the military, and so I wanted to be a bit safer. And after I have invested a bit into more culture production, I at least wanted to be a bit more on the safe side with having the Manhattan Project, because just going for classic armies, as said, might at the end not be enough. Also, of course, I had to do a bit of calculations if I actually have enough resources to maybe go for something like two classic armies with Air Forces in the Manhattan Project, and I should have enough resources if I now don't spend enough anything else on culture production or something like this. I again draw 3 cards and draw the impact of architecture, which could be interesting. Also the entrenchments tactic, which probably I won't use. And as you can see, Pajada is starting some preparations, puts a cavalryman into the multimedia with the freedom of movement, develops the cannons, is already starting to destroy some stuff, still is at 11 science production thanks to the second multimedia. goes for 2 cannons, reveals the tactic even, showing to the opponents that he has a lot of potential, and then just having enough civil actions left to go for air forces and the patriotisms. At least he doesn't draw any new cards, so even though I can't take a look at his hand at the next turn, I know exactly what cards he has in hand. Or not exactly, I don't know what he has discarded, but I know exactly what cards he could have in hand, which is quite nice. But he has now military theory, air forces, patriotism. In 2 turns he has the potential to go for a very big war. Now it's Palino's turn, and he of course sees that there is some danger. He goes for the military theory, is still willing to play it maybe a bit greedily with going for the space flight, but he maybe also needs the space flight in order to have a real chance in the game. Maybe he needs to hope that he can defend himself and also go for the space flight. He has lots of resources, and as we will see at the end of his turn, he also has the shock troops tactic in hand. So now, with that, he can just threaten to build a lot of tanks, and even though he missed out on the Air Force, he has the Michi Castle, he can build a lot of tanks and sacrifice it, and with that maybe also has the potential to go for a lot of strength. But of course, he could have played it safer, he could have gone for the fundamentalism, but then he might just, maybe his hope then could be that Pajada indeed goes for war, and that I can prepare myself less good. And then maybe if Pajada goes for war against me, that might be nice, but it's still not certain how Pajada will go for, what exactly Pajada will go for. And also I can actually potentially set myself up relatively nicely, at least with the cards that are left for me. So maybe Palino could me deny some option, but the spaceflight has a lot of potential, and so he can maybe now hope to still be able to defend himself. Maybe Pajada will still go for war against me. Maybe Palino is confident enough that he can still threaten more defense with the Michi Castle. He has lots of resource. Maybe he can even threaten to go for 3 shock troops tactics potentially, and so he will go for the spaceflight. Because maybe if the spaceflight will stay available for Pajada, Pajada will just abandon the war plans, go for the spaceflight, and play a peaceful game. This turn I can take a look at Palino's cards, and the most relevant card is that he has 1 impact in hand that he might play, and that is the impact of technology. He has a lot of science, has already developed some H3 technologies, so I maybe should prepare for this impact. Also the question is again, do I want to push an impact, because all of the impacts could backfire quite a bit. Impact of competition is rather bad at the moment. Impact of architecture is looking decent at the moment. Palino has a little bit more than I have, but it's relatively similar, and I have a bit more than Pajada. If Pajada continues the game peacefully, maybe we'll just build some multimedia, go for an H3 government, build even additional multimedia and organized religion. But I thought the impact of architecture is maybe not that likely to backfire very heavily. And again, I'm the weakest. Maybe I shouldn't push, but I also thought if maybe Pajada goes for the war and I can just get more value out of some impacts, maybe if I can defend myself relatively nicely, I could even potentially lose the war. But with having a lot of impacts in there, where maybe with having the ocean liner service not having to destroy it that much in order to defend myself, maybe I could then still finish before Pajada, just with catching up with the impact, since I wanted to use the opportunity. But I was a bit afraid because I'm the weakest and there could be some annoying events, and sadly there is an annoying event with the politics of strength. So maybe, again, in hindsight I shouldn't have seeded, because the annoying thing is, before that I knew exactly what Pajada's cards could be, but now he has 5 additional cards in hand, and I don't know what those are. Now he could have a hybrid war, he could have different aggressions, could have some impacts that I don't have knowledge about. So I was not too happy about seeing this, especially because it also takes away the option for me to maybe draw another nice impact, because at my next turn there is the chance that the age will have already ended. First of all, it's of course important to take a look at what Pajada's strength potential is. In the first look, without going too deep, I thought, okay, we'll probably go for military theory and then 2 air forces, and it will put him at the 90s. I also made some notes. Let me just get them really quick. So now I have my notes, and that turn was somewhat complicated, or I have to be I have to think about what strength do I need to threaten for the next turn, but I also need to think what strength do I need to threaten for in 2 turns. And if pajada should decide to go for a war immediately, and I thought he probably wouldn't do this if he has only 1 war in hand, but sadly he has now drawn more cards, he could have now even multiple wars. He could even do something like, of course, first you could think he might go for air forces and play patriotism, build 1 air force. If he is a hybrid war, I could even go for 2 air forces, but I can't really play around a hybrid war. That would be very bad for me anyway. So let's just hope that pajada doesn't have a hybrid war, but he could go for a war, and instead of going for air force, he could even develop the military theory, and then if he builds 2 more riflemen and a cannon, he has enough to go for another army, and it still would leave him enough to be able to go for 2 more air forces the next turn, and that is actually very threatening, because then he would the next turn already go up to 80 strength, so that's what I need to set myself up for defense for the next turn. But in 2 turns, with going for the 2 air forces, he would be able to go for 116 strength, which is a very big amount, and I won't be able to match it. Palino also won't be able to match it. Especially if maybe the fundamentalism will be denied, which in a lot of options I took for myself, but at the end I didn't go for it. And yeah, so that is quite threatening, but the good news is, in order to do this, pajada needs a lot of population in the military, meaning he basically needs to destroy almost everything from his civilization. So that, I think, if I remember it correctly, basically only can keep the organized religion and 2 multimedias, or maybe even destroy 1 multimedia, instead keep 1 farm. So that would be very costly, and it's not certain if pajada would even go for something like this, because while he can maybe drag 1 player down, his economy is that much destroyed that the player that he doesn't go for a war against maybe will just win. So it's the question if he will even be willing to go for this, but it's a thing that he could do, and of course the less I prepare for it, the more likely it is that pajada will go for a very big war. And at the end, there were 2 main options that I considered for myself. Either an option where I just take satellites, fundamentalism, and reserves, play 1 copy of reserves this turn to use the Silk Road bonus, build 1 cavalryman, and then I would be prepared to finish Manhattan Project and build another classic army, or go for another cavalryman and swordsman at my next turn, and develop the satellites and the fundamentalism. Or develop 1 of those things, because at the end I in this option went for the selective breeding to have still a way to fix my famine at the end, which could be quite nice. But I could go for the fundamentalism at the next turn, for the satellites in 2 turns, and that would allow me to at the next turn already threaten an amount of 84 strength, which should make me safe from a war for at least 1 turn. Also, it is a bit less of a commitment, so if pajada makes the decision to remain, to let the game continue peacefully, then I may be a better setup for just scoring a lot of points at the end. But in 2 turns, I can't really add that much more, because I don't have enough resources to go for another classic army, and then I just basically can go for something like 92 strength when I develop the satellites, maybe go for 1 more air force, maybe could go for 1 strength more or 2 when I build a warrior or swordsman or something, but not really a lot more. So 92 is quite a difference to 116, so I at the end went for the different option that allows me to go for more strength in 2 turns. I will now go for developing the cannons, building 1, going for the modern infantry, and the plan is basically to copy the modern army tactic that pajada revealed already the turn before. I also in this option want to play 1 copy of reserves with the Silk Road bonus, trying to get as much value out of the Silk Road as possible, going for 1 upgrade, taking the reserves, taking the satellites. I thought about going for the fundamentalism. First of all, maybe it could be nice to deny it from Palino to make it more likely that he won't be able to threaten a lot of strength, even though pajada might take it away from him anyway, and he can't use it and military theory in air forces. So I was hoping that pajada would just take it away if he plans to go for war. But the problem is, with this approach, I threaten a little bit less strength for the next turn already, and if I don't take the satellites, I can only threaten 79 strength, which would be 1 less than pajada can go for. And if I can't win against him in a war, he might, if he now has a second war, he might just go for a war already, and then for another one, in 2 turns, so I need the satellites just because of the 3 additional strength. And of course it's also nice to have for the impact of variety and a potential impact of progress. But in 2 turns I might have less strength potential, so I thought about going for the fundamentalism instead, so that in 2 turns I can go for the fundamentalism. But at the next turn, if the age should end, I might have some happy face issues, and I might need to destroy potentially a science building. And then I might not be able to go for fundamentalism in 2 turns anyway, and I need the satellites to be able to threaten enough strength for the next turn, so I at the end went with this, and then I will at the next turn be able to copy the modern army tactic and go for 1 cannon and 1 modern infantry, having 1 real tactic with the air forces and 1 outdated tactic with the air forces, which together with the satellites would put me at 82 strength, 2 more than pajada would be able to go for at his turn. And now, this option has some disadvantages. I can't develop the selective breeding this turn, meaning if the age should end, maybe I miss out on mechanized agriculture, don't have the chance to take it. I might have some issues with the famine, because at the moment I'm still benefiting from this pact. If this pact is gone and I go into the next area of my yellow bank, I have famine issues very quickly. And also I maybe invest more into something like cannons, modern infantry, so it's a bit of more of a commitment, but in 2 turns with this I will be able to go for 100 strength, and that hopefully is a bit more threatening than the 92 that I could do with the other option. And so I went for this option. One downside is also that I draw less cards, but that was only true before the politics of strength was revealed. Now that it is revealed, the downside of this option actually goes away, and I just felt I need to threaten more strength, because maybe pajada doesn't want to go all in anyway, but he definitely could. And if so, then it might be very important that maybe I'm better prepared than Palino, but that's maybe actually not that likely, because Palino can probably threaten to go for 3 shock groups tactics. It will depend a little bit on whether the patriotism will be available for him. He can threaten it anyway, but if the patriotism isn't available, then he needs to get out of corruption and play the patriotism too before he will lose it to the end of the age. If I remember my calculations correctly, and he can't destroy in coal mines, so he needs to destroy maybe 1 farm, 2 computers, play the patriotism, build 3 tanks, and then he has enough to threaten another shock groups tactic, if I remember my calculations correctly. So it would be somewhat costly if the patriotism is revealed, which is maybe relatively likely. Then he can threaten 3 shock groups armies, and sacrificing of course with the Michi Castle a lot more easily. So now the game got quite exciting, with pajada potentially going for this big war, and the question will be, will he go all in? And then of course, if he goes all in, which player will he choose as his target? I sadly won't draw any cards, which is a bit bad. And then pajada at his turn will seed, and immigration is revealed. So while maybe it was bad that I seeded because of the politics of strength revealed, at least now the immigration is revealed, making it a pajada doesn't have an additional will lose 1 population, so that at least will now be a bit annoying for him, causing an uprising issue immediately that he has to fix. So you see he goes for air forces, destroys a lot of stuff, to commits definitely, goes for 2 air forces now at 89 strength. And at the next turn he could go for the military theory, build 3 units, and then still threaten the 116 strength that he could have also done with going for the 3 units, and then at the next turn for 2 air forces. So he seems to still have those war plans in mind, and with the 89 strength, just also being quite threatening. Also potentially to go for an aggression. The next turn, luckily, I will be able to take a look at his hand again and maybe see what dangers they are awaiting me. Sadly, the patriotism is just revealed. It not being revealed, I think, would have been a bit unlucky for Palino, so it's maybe the fine outcome, but of course I would have hoped maybe that it stays in the deck. Now it's a bit easier for him to threaten a very big defense. Also there's the democracy available for him. It was a bit unlucky for him that it is that late. He had a lot of science available for quite a long time. He will then destroy 1 farm, 1 computer, so is also committing a little bit. Will not play the patriotism, I think, instead just gets out of corruption instead, and then takes the patriotism 3. And with that the age will end. He has the democracy going, and with being able to go for 3 more tanks, he is now actually, or actually not 3, 4 more tanks, and then having 3 tactics ongoing, he will be able, together with sacrificing, if I remember it correctly, to threaten 106 strength. so more than me, but if he needs to defend and actually needs to pull off his defense, he would need to destroy a lot. Maybe he can also go for pro sports, so maybe that was important for him to take so that he doesn't have an uprising issue, can get a little bit of additional strength from there. So let's see, he is 22 at the next turn, 30, yeah, he is just enough to go for 1 upgrade to pro sports and 4 tanks, I think, and I think he should also have enough civil actions for to execute it, so his strength potential might actually be 108 with that, if I remembered correctly. I didn't take notes about that, so now that is quite threatening, because if Pajada goes for war, I might be the more likely target, even though Palino will lose more. He can't finish the space flight and has to destroy a lot in order to defend himself. Now I can again take a look at Pajada, and I will see that he maybe also has some potential peaceful options available, because he has the impact of culture and the impact of science in hand. Especially the impact of science is of course quite interesting. He has the most science at the moment. He could maybe go for war, keep the multimedias, and then still play the impact of science at the last turn potentially. And now, this turn, as you can see, I decided to see the impact of balance, because I again thought if Pajada should decide to go for a war against me, maybe I could still have a chance to finish before him if I just have some more nice impacts in there. And the impact of balance isn't that great for me now, but I found a turn where I can pull off my defense of going for 100 in strength and still being able to pull off an impact of balance of 12. And Palino also destroyed his farm, doesn't have a nice balance, so I was just hoping that it will be a nice impact. And I could maybe just seed it at the next turn, because now I'm again in danger of getting hit by a potentially bad event. But I will get a little bit stronger, and there's maybe a chance that this raid could be annoying for Palino at the next turn, or that maybe the impact of competition is out of the sudden a seedable event. So I just wanted to keep those options potentially open and seed this impact already in this turn. Also, then I know for certain what the last event is. But it could again also get punished again a little bit if there is something bad revealed which impacts my turn immediately. And the thing that is revealed is not really nice to see, because it is the terrorism, which will allow Pajada to destroy 2 very costly buildings from me and Palino. And now, so I might have to expect to either lose the movies or maybe the organized religion if Pajada really wants to cause some happy face issues for me. Palino will probably lose another computer, so that definitely gives Pajada some nice benefits. But it also was a little bit unlucky for Palino, because if it would have been revealed in his turn, he actually would have had the least culture and could have destroyed some stuff, if I remembered correctly. So that could have been then a little bit of a swing, but I think out of the 3 events that were opened, Pajada had at least less culture of 2 of the events. You can maybe check that out, I'm not totally certain. So overall it was maybe more likely that Pajada would get this event, but there was a chance that Palino maybe could have opened the terrorism, which then would have been quite a swing whether he or Pajada will be able to destroy some stuff. Now it's my turn. I will use the Ocean Liner service, and with the H ending you can see that I have actually some issues with my happy faces. And the problem is, if I build an organized religion, even if I build it, I think with building a religion and going for 1 upgrade, I am missing enough resources to actually go for the 100 in strength defense that I want to do at the next turn. So I can't really build an organized religion. Instead I have to destroy some stuff, and it is very painful, but at the end, first of all, I will play 1 reserves with the Silk Road bonus. I will go for some upgrades. I copy the modern army tactic, putting myself at 63 strength, and then I need to destroy something. As you can see, I will sadly destroy the journalism. That is of course quite annoying, costing me 4 culture production this turn and the next turn, and also potential points for impact of variety. But the problem is, if I delete the scientific method, I'm 1 science missing to go for satellites and mechanized agriculture, removing my ability to fix my famine very cheaply with the efficient upgrade and prepare for the impact of balance, which could potentially be a nice impact against Palino and Pajada. And also when I go for an additional technology, then there is also the impact of technology that I saw in Palino's hand, and I think he seeded, and I think it could only be the impact of, or it could not only be the impact of tech, or Did he seed after? Maybe he seeded after I took a look at his hand. I think. I think I remember that I was 100% certain it's the impact of tech. So now with that, developing an additional technology will also result in additional 4 culture. With that, I was willing to destroy the journalisms. And then with my last civil actions, I took the mechanized agriculture, the urban growth, so that I can hopefully build a cheap organized religion at the next turn, and then I can go for the satellites. If I need to defend against the war, I could. With playing the reserves, I am at 11 plus 5, 16 resources. I could invest 12 from them into modern infantry and cannons, and have still enough to go for 1 upgrade to mechanized agriculture and building 1 organized religion to fix my happy faces. If there is no war, then at least I can maybe rebuild 1 movie that might get destroyed from the terrorism, and also then maybe go for an upgrade to mechanized agriculture, build 1 religion or something like this. And maybe during my thoughts for this turn, I was maybe too much thinking that Pajada will actually go for the war. Because the war, of course, will be quite strong, but both me and Palino have a somewhat decent defense. Pajada would need to destroy a lot, and what I saw in his hand are also 2 aggressions, the plunder and the raid. And I sadly can't defend against him. I've only took 2 cards in hand. And that would be guaranteed for Pajada to get through, and there's still a wonder that he can finish, and so I think that might be an even more appealing option for him that I maybe didn't consider as much when I playing the turn. I thought about it, of course, that Pajada might do something peaceful, but I'm just after the turns before, I was maybe too much in my war defense mindset, and didn't consider the different options that maybe Pajada could do peacefully, or I only thought about them roughly, and no, but that could also be a very interesting option for Pajada, but I don't know if I could actually do something different that would help me in such a scenario, because I still need to prepare for war. If I just throw in a lot less strength, Pajada might still go for the war, and also I don't think I can get enough strength this turn to actually defend against an aggression, because I would actually need to go up to 87 or maybe over 80 to at least threaten to defend against an aggression. So I'm not sure if I maybe could have done something different, but I maybe should have thought a little bit more about Pajada's peaceful options, because as you can see, he will not go for a war. He won't go for the 116 strength war. Instead, he will go for the raid, getting 9 additional resources, destroying a movie and an organized religion, and with the terrorism he will now be able to even destroy another building, which is quite costly, destroying another movie and an H3 lab from Palino. But there are also at least some good news for me, because Pajada will now go for the United Nations, giving him 16 points, evaluates an impact that is nice for him. But thanks to the terrorism being able to destroy Palino's computer, I'm actually the 2nd strongest in the impact of science, even though I disbanded a journalism at a turn before. So the terrorism also does some nice stuff for me, allowing me to get +7 against Palino instead of being 7 culture behind in the impact of science. So while seeding and opening the terrorism was one-hand banned, at least with the terrorism being revealed, now I maybe get more culture out of this United Nations than Palino. Pajada then will go for 1 organized religion after finishing the United Nations and ends his turn. And as you can see, I think this peaceful option was probably the best for him, because he has now a lead. Can again seed the impact of science or impact of culture, both might be seedable for him, get another nice impact, has somewhat decently still prepared for the other impacts, while Palino and I have lost a lot of buildings. Especially me losing all of those buildings is very costly, especially with the impact of architecture coming, and I was very afraid that Palino might now seed an impact of variety or impact of architecture might be revealed, because both of those impacts I will be able to improve by quite a bit at my next turn. And Pajada, I think, is now looking in a very solid position, probably with good chances to win, but I at least will be able to increase my culture production again, might get some points with impact of balance, and also maybe a little bit more than the Pajada in the impact of tech that was seeded by Palino, so maybe there are still some chances. I was happy to see that Palino doesn't seed, and he will go for 2 techs. for the impact of tech and for the spaceflight, putting the spaceflight at 29, and then he will go for rebuilding the lab, which is very important for him because that makes it that he's more science production again than me. And also with building this, he is at 12 culture production. He doesn't know about the impact of culture, but now it's basically impossible for me to overtake Palino in impact of science or impact of culture. I could maybe overtake him in impact of science, but Pajada could then just play the impact of culture if he thinks I'm the bigger threat, so there's not really any need to invest for those impacts. And Palino, while getting less out of the impact of science with the United Nations, might now get more out of one of those two impacts, when Pajada will very likely seed one of those into the deck, because going for a blunder very likely doesn't result in as much culture for him than seeding those impacts does. Palino will lose a lot of culture to famine, so that is quite annoying for him, but he has still got a decent amount of culture with developing those techs, preparing for the impact of tech, and getting a big space flight going. Now it's my turn. I don't go for any politics phase. Of course, I could have played raid against Palino, but I could take a look at his hand. He has a defense card, so he doesn't need to sacrifice, and I also know that Pajada doesn't go for an aggression. I mean, maybe there's a chance that Palino, no, there's no chance that he would have sacrificed to keep the defense card. It doesn't really make sense. He would just lose the strength from the unit and potentially be less nicely prepared for impacts. So I just didn't want to waste more time with playing an aggression that doesn't change anything anyway, so I just skipped my politics phase. And I have a lot of repopulation after losing all of those buildings, which is definitely not a nice sight to see all of those nice technologies without a worker on it. But at least I can rebuild a little bit of those things. I can build one movie using the urban growth with the Silk Road bonus. I can build one organized religion to not have an uprising issue. I can then develop the mechanized agriculture, upgrade one time to be better prepared for the impact of balance and the potential impact of agriculture, and at least I can build one more religion. Sadly, not being able to overtake Palino and the impact of culture, but at least tying. And with that, when I will end my turn, first of all, I will take those two cards away. The computers might be relevant, because with that, Pajada will be getting 3 additional culture for Einstein and 4 for the impact of tech. And with that, I am at 132 after ending my turn, 7 before Palino, and now the flaming ability is actually giving me a lot of useful information, because I have almost full knowledge about the impacts. I have seeded a bunch of them myself. The impact of variety, architecture, and balance. Variety and balance are actually quite nice against Palino, and I was mostly looking at Palino at this point, because while there are maybe some small chances that I could still have a shot to finish before Pajada, I don't really think I should have big hopes for that, because Pajada will have a lead, will have a plus 14 impact against me. I don't know. And the impacts that I have in there are in total a bit better for me, I think, but not that much that it would allow me to catch up. So I was mostly hoping at this point to finish at the second place before Palino. I will have a 7 culture lead going into the final impacts. Impact of variety and impact of balance are plus 8 for me against him, so that gives me a lead of 23. But the impact of architecture is actually less good for me now that I got raided, so that's then plus 3 for him, so plus 20 for me overall. And then I know that the impact of tech is in there from Palino, giving him plus 4 against me, so that's plus 16 for me. And I know that either impact of culture or science is in there, giving plus 7, or will be in there, giving plus 7 for Palino against me, which leaves me still at plus 9. And then there's one unknown impact in there that Pajada draw with the politics of strength. If that impact doesn't give Palino 9 or more points against me, then I will be able to finish at the second place. So I was hoping that I have decent chances to finish at the second place, but it will now depend on this one unknown impact from Pajada. And Pajada will seed, opens the impact of variety, which is nice, because the impact of architecture, as you will see, he won't improve during his turn, but the impact of variety will, with developing the military theory, so it costs him 2 points, maybe increasing my chances by a little bit to still somehow have a chance to overtake him, but I don't think there is, especially because Pajada calls the impact of balance with me going for the mechanized agriculture, or maybe the impact of agriculture, and with that prepares for both of those impacts, maybe a seeded impact of agriculture himself. And with that, before the final impacts, Pajada has the lead. I'm only 8 points behind, but sadly Pajada has one very big impact against me, and then I have now at the moment a 15 culture lead before Palino. The first impact that we see is the impact of architecture, giving plus 10 to both my opponents, only plus 7 for myself, so it didn't work out that nicely at the end to seed this, but at least with this reculture for seeding it is still somewhat tight, but of course I opened a bad event when I seeded it. Impact of balance is revealed, giving me and pajada plus 12, Palino plus 4, so now I have a bigger lead before Palino. I'm 11 points behind pajada. The impact of technology allows me to catch up a little bit to pajada. I'm now 7 points behind, and Palino catches up to me, is now 16 points behind me. Then we have the impact of science. That one might give pajada the win. He is now at the 21 culture lead, and Palino catches up to me, is now the 9 culture behind me that we calculated, because the last impact is actually the unknown impact. So now it will all depend on what pajada has drawn with the politics of strength. If there's an impact that gives Palino plus 10 against me, I will lose this game. Otherwise, I will finish at the 2nd position. And it's the impact of progress, and that one is actually, I'm the best in this one, but it's very similar for all players, and with that I at the end am at least able to keep my 2nd place in this game. And pajada at the end is able to win it, and with that he will move up to the top of the honor roll of the Transcontinental Ladder. That is a very nice achievement for maybe the oldest still ongoing tournament through the ages. He is now on top, and that is a nice achievement, and in the following rounds he will probably try his best to defend this position, because there are some other players that are relatively near in this honor roll of champion with the amount of wins that they have. So but for now pajada has the top spot, has overtaken Jaffet, who is not playing I think since a long time already now, but had also a YouTube channel. For those who are following through the ages content already a long time, you might remember him. He was on top of the honor roll of champions for a long time, but now pajada has overtaken him. So congratulations to him. And at the end I was somewhat happy about my 2nd place, because I was always thinking if pajada goes for war, I might be the more likely target with being able to threaten less strength. Didn't maybe look as much as peaceful options for pajada. I think when I have seen those impacts, I should have seen that he can go for United Nations, a raid, and evaluate one of those impacts. But at least I'm at the 2nd position at the end. Going into H3, I maybe would have been a bit disappointed knowing that I would finish 2nd at the end, because I think I had quite a nice position, all of those strong wonders, lots of civil actions, the architecture, tons of science available. Then, just before the end of H2, I think I maybe made a big mistake that and maybe gave too much value to pajada when I didn't end the H and allowed him to get 2 additional Barbarossa activations. That I think was an oversight, and who knows, without that, maybe that already makes big enough of a difference to then of course the game would go differently anyway. But that definitely helped pajada going for a threatening amount of strength. I then got lucky to get an early copy of Air Forces, which helped me a lot to defend myself, but at the end pajada, just with threatening a lot of strength, was able to force awkward responses out of his opponents, got some nice strength events along the way, got the terrorism along the way, and with that, and then finishing the United Nations at the end, was able to win this game. So that was the Transcontinental Ladder game that I wanted to share with you. I think it was quite an interesting one with a lot of war potential going on in H3, a lot of different ways how the game could maybe go, because if Palino reveals the terrorism on his turn, it's probably big enough of a swing for him to finish 2nd, because we don't know what then would happen. But if he keeps the computers and destroys something from pajada, who knows, maybe even pajada has then some issues, can't that easily go for those impacts. Maybe will then go for a war. It would be interesting to see how this game would have continued then. But for Palino it would have been very nice, also with the impact of architecture and just keeping more production. He would also be able to destroy a building before my turn, and I can't easily rebuild it because I need to be concerned about my strength. So could also do some real damage for me. So I think with the terrorism revealed in his turn, he probably wouldn't lose this game. With that we are at the end of the video. I hope it was an interesting one for you. I hope you're looking forward to the next games that I will cover, probably 1 or 2 two-player games from the Royal League next. And thanks for watching. Check out my new Patreon page that I will link in the channel description. And then thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.